Here we are.
This friggin' seat always just... There we go. Always goes down when I don't want it to. That's what she said.
Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Mike.
Morning. What's up, guys?
Just talking tats.
Talking tats. Got tattooed yesterday, a big tattoo of my cat. May she rest in peace. And the guy that does it, since most people travel, he said to him, he does everything in one shot rather than multiple sittings. So I sat for about 8.5 hours yesterday.
Oh, God.
It was horrible.
Doesn't seem worth doing.
I mean, the first 4 were fine, but that's normally when I'm done. Little Mike, you don't have any, right? You're not tattooed at all, right?
No.
CJ will get this. So at one point, I'm like, when I started to struggle around hour 5, I had my earbuds, my AirPods, and I was like, do you mind if I put these in and just listen to music? And he didn't care. Interesting side note, he's Russian and everyone in the shop is Russian. So they're all talking Russian the entire time, which is a neat language. I've never heard it before like that much. But anyway, but I couldn't even hear what they were saying. And so I put in the AirPods, but it made it worse because I couldn't hear when he was starting. So I couldn't prepare. I couldn't hear the buzzing. So the pain would just happen out of nowhere. So I had to take the AirPods off. It was rough. It was rough.
Did he mix in color to start off, or did he do the outline first and then color after?
So most of the people I go to do the outline first. He just did it each stage. So he would do the bottom part, cover it up with second skin, then do the next part, then do the next part. But the cat's ears, it's on my thigh. The top of it is at the top of my thigh, and it's a rough spot.
The nerves shoot up a lot higher than where it actually is getting punctured.
It was tough. So, but then I got to come home and watch the game. So it's good. We ready to roll? Let's do it. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS. Brought to you by Briggs Auction, the official auction of the process. BriggsAuction.com/Ricky. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Get yours at bigbarker.com/Ricky. And Kinetic Skateboarding. And this, got my new Kinetic Skateboard Day gear. Kinetic Skateboarding, get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. I did ask Ben when I ordered this. I said, hey, I accidentally ordered the black with red hoodie. Could you replace it with the tan hoodie? He said, sure, and didn't do it. So here I am with the black hoodie. But black hoodie's kind of cool. I dig it. Anyway, on the show today, the vibes, they are, as some would say, immaculate right now, as the Sixers play their first game with James Harden, and suffice it to say, it went pretty well. Also, Bill Simmons says that Joel Embiid actually wanted Bradley Beal, and Willie Cauley-Stein appears to may already have a Sixers tattoo. I did mention Kinetic Skateboarding. I don't skateboard because I'm too old, and when I tried to do it when I was 15 or 16, I was terrible. But I do love the gear. And if you love the gear, here you go, kineticskateboarding.com. It's not just Kinetic brand, obviously. And everybody wears sneakers, not just skateboarders. They have Vans, Nikes, New Balance that you're not going to find anywhere else. Go to kineticskateboarding.com. Love the winter hats, too, the beanies. kineticskateboarding.com and use promo code Dave Silver for 9.1% off your first order. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
Larry, sweetie, the man is here.
Say the name. I say the name. I say the name.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
forever.
Hard to believe the guy that gave us that song is the same guy that gave us Tony T and his January 5th story. Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy whose wit is only outdone by his newfound insufferability. That would be one, Mike Levin. Bedhead Mike, what up?
What a game. What a game. This is cool. It was cool. It was cool and good when we got him. And it was pretty cool and good while we waited for him. And then he played, and it was really cool, and it was really good. James Harden. It's James Harden. I think a lot of people tried to convince people that he's not James Harden, and that he wasn't the guy that we've seen him be for a decade, and he wasn't exactly what this team needed as far as
dribbling, shooting, scoring.
Well, all passing. That, but truly. And this is a me thing, and I know it's a me thing more than most people, but it's also right. The Sixers have had no good passers this season, none. And Embiid has obviously improved a lot, but the stuff that James Harden does on the court, just with his passing, and obviously the passing comes with the threat of the shot and the threat of the dribble. That all works into how people cover him. But the passing, if you isolate the passing, it's so much better than anyone else's, and it totally changes things. It changes things in the half court. It definitely changes things in transition. There were hit aheads that you just did not see at all this season. The long pass to Maxey for the layup, no one was doing that. There was a 1-2, I think it was Korkmaz. I don't remember. It was a long pass that you could see Tobias or Maxey or whoever, or Seth, looking at it and being he's down there, it's too far, I'll just dribble it up. And it was just a quick, he got the ball, he looked at it is both passing skill and passing quickness that it comes with basketball IQ. It's unbelievable. Doc had a quote after the game, said, guys aren't used to running and getting the ball. And he's right. It's perfectly correct. But imagine that sentence. Guys aren't used to running and getting the ball. And now they are. They should be, because James Harden makes those simple, quick, really good passes and the more difficult passes, and obviously the pocket passes to rollers, whatever. That's the thing that was most striking to me of how the team played different. Because he's out there making really good passes that other guys didn't see, all of it. That so just totally opens things up for me. I was thrilled last night.
Well, the two things directly involved with that, and then one overall thing that I noticed. The main thing I noticed is that everything was just easier, right? It made more sense. When the guy bringing up the ball can do those three things, dribble, pass, shoot, and it's Harden who's actually really good at all of them, everything makes a little bit more sense. And there are players that I think will benefit from this, and some that maybe struggle or aren't perfectly suited for it, and we'll talk about that. But just even when the offense wasn't functioning perfectly in the beginning, it was sort of a rough start, at least shooting wise. You could tell everything was going to make more sense. But the thing that it seemed to do to me, these are two things lining up with what you said, is that because James Harden could do what he did, Joel Embiid came out setting screen after screen after screen after screen. Sometimes he rolled, sometimes he popped, but he seemed energized in a way that he hadn't before to do that particular thing. And then even Maxey is it made him play faster. Somebody who plays fast, I mean from the backcourt, from rebound, it made him go quicker the entire game. He seemed like he was shot out of a cannon, and he almost replaced some of the stuff that Simmons did before, just grabbing and going. And we had talked about that before. Anyone can try that. And Embiid had tried it, and watching Maxey try it and just going and knowing, all of them knowing they could get the ball at any time when they're open, almost seemed stunning to them in the beginning. But it was wild, man. It was a delight to watch, a
It
true
really
delight.
was. I mean, Embiid talked about how he's never been this open in his career, and it looked, he could tell he was like surprised by it. But my favorite play, it was towards the end of the game. There were a bunch of great plays, but the one that showed, once Harden started hitting a couple of those step backs, which was just, I mean, come on. It's really cool. It was really cool to see him do the move, do his thing. Say your catchphrase, which is a step back as they foul you, even though they know it's coming, often from the same spot in the court. He hit like 3 of those.
I was missing the snug pick and roll last night, honestly.
I wasn't at all. But you see it. So he hit a couple of those, and all of a sudden he's got the ball at the top of the key, and Minnesota's like, we got to like double him. We have to double him with the ball 30 feet away from the basket. So someone starts to come over there to help.
Yeah.
They help off of basically Joel's side. And it's like a guy that has been doubled, tripled all season long. Now all of a sudden he's like, what the fuck? I don't know. How am I this? They're leaving me, which is wild. So he cuts to the nail, basically, to the foul line. And then D'Angelo goes with him because it's like, well, that's fucking Joel Embiid. And then Harden makes the simplest pass of anyone's career to a wide open Tyrese Maxey, who literally has the entire right side of the court to himself. And he just hits the most wide open 3 of all time. It's just like the threat of Harden being there. No move even. Once he had already established that he could do that, they just allowed the Sixers to get wildly open, smart cut from Embiid, easy cut, and then Maxey at 3. It's like you just see what someone that is a threat to do those things opens up for the rest of the court. And I tweeted this, and people, as they are, anytime you bring up like historical stuff, they'll argue with it. But like James Harden is the best at all of those things that the Sixers have had in a while. He's a better shooter than Iverson, obviously. Mm-hmm. He's a better passer than Iverson, obviously. Yep. He's a better ball handler than Charles Barkley and Julius Erving. Like they haven't had a guy that can do these things
all
in a very long time
at this level. Right.
At this level, like he's the guy. Like he's one of the top. I don't know. It doesn't matter. People say that there's 45 players in the top 10 of the league that people talk about, but he's really good. He was an MVP candidate. He was MVP a couple years ago. He was an MVP candidate last year. Like he's borderline impossible to stop. And also we have Joel Embiid, and it's just like it's really cool. It's dope, and it is cool to see Maxey have like 28 on 16 shots.
Yeah,
and
we'll get to
with other things. It's unbelievable. It was what an experience it was last night.
And the free throw stuff started right away. And
right away.
As usual, I watch on the visitor stream on League Pass, and it's always I'll give the Timberwolves announcers credit. They were pretty fair and praising of both Embiid and Harden a lot. They weren't homerish at all. But as soon as Embiid got fouled, it was like the second play of the game. They were just like, "Oh God, here we go," and it was here we go, and it never stopped. How many free throws did they shoot combined? They must have shot
22, which is I think on the lower end for what it will be.
Yep. And I almost wonder what teams are going to do. I almost think that teams will focus on not doing it too much, which might end up being an advantage for the Sixers. Having those two guys, they're going to be an infuriating fucking team to play against.
Yeah,
really infuriating on a lot of different levels, And so that started right away too. The fouling and the free throwing started right away as well. I wanted to also on the top talk about give credit, aside from one small part in the third quarter, to Doc Rivers, who somehow managed to keep one of Embiid and Harden on the floor at almost all times. Who went out first? Oh, Harden went out first, and then he came back with a couple minutes left in the first, and then Embiid went out, and I was like, oh, this is what because when he said yesterday or 2 days ago that he was going to keep 2 of Harris, Maxey, Embiid, Harden on the floor at all times, and I was like, oh, well, if I know my doc, what this is going to be is Harden, Embiid, and then Harris and Maxey, which is not what I want. But he was able to keep one of Embiid or Harden on the floor at all times, and that's enormous. If we haven't had a guy who can take the fucking reins when Embiid's not on ever. Butler, I guess that's it. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it was wild to see them extend a lead with Embiid off the floor.
Yes.
Just not a thing that's happened. And obviously they shot well from 3, and that's not going to continue quite as much. It shot basically 50% from 3. but they're going to get those open looks, and they move the ball well. I thought they were just passing. I thought Harden being there and knowing like we have Embiid, he's going to slow the ball down. We have Harden, he's going to slow the ball down sometimes. No one else is allowed to do that. Like no one else can start to like survey the court. There was one time that Paul Millsap did, and I was like, all right, he's 1,000 years old. Like, okay,
Give him a
let him
break. Yeah.
let him dribble slowly into a post up, fine. But like no one else is allowed. You just can't do it. And they moved the ball really well. They passed it like crazy. 30 assists on 42 shots is really nice. I do want to shout out Tobias took 6 threes, man. He took 6 threes. They were all off the fucking catch. And I don't care that he had 6 points on 9 shots. I don't care. I really don't care. I think he is a guy that as a safety valve type guy, he can once in a while when like there's the right mismatch, he can get hot. It'll happen over the course of the season. Maybe it'll happen one game in the playoffs, fine. But like most of what he's got to do is just like shoot off the catch, and he did, and I'm proud of him. And I thought he played pretty good defense. And like that's all we're asking. We're not saying he's like a cornerstone. I think the team doesn't think there's a cornerstone. He's basically out of all the promotional stuff. It's really just like everybody is I almost too bald about it. Like it was like, well, it's Embiid and Harden, and then Maxi's the future. And it's like Tobias is like, what are we doing here?
Reading a book somewhere.
But like all he's got to do is exactly what he did last night. Sometimes the shot will fall more. Sometimes he'll have an easier matchup where he'll attack a closeout and get hot a little bit. Fine. But like 6 threes. Thank you very much, Tobias. Thank you for shooting off the catch. We're working on it. I don't anticipate it continuing because there's that honeymoon, like, okay, here's what I'm supposed to do, and then we fall back into our natural habits. But like for one night, I don't care. Tobias, thank you.
I'm gonna give an opposing Tobias take right after we talk about our sponsor, Briggs Auction. Hello, Briggs Auction. Love Briggs Auction, a 4-generation family-owned and operated auction house in Garnet Valley, Delco. What's great about Briggs Auction? Well, one of the big things is right now, if you go to buy new furniture somewhere, because of the supply chain stuff, you're waiting forever, 6 months, 8 months. Briggs Auction, you're not waiting. Also, the other good thing at Briggs Auction is that there's just so much awesome stuff. So they have a new auction up today. They have auctions basically every week right now. The March 4th Discovery Auction at Briggs. 3 things that I wanted to point out. A 1913 property atlas of Delaware County. Like, I would love to have this fucking thing in my house. Leather bound. If you read page 42, yeah, the demon comes up in the middle of your living room. Then the next thing, this is the same auction. A signed photo of Prince. Frame signed photo of Prince. Would love to also have that in my
Those
living room.
really pair nicely together.
Yeah. Are you kidding? And then finally, and this was something that I was just mentioning, I need a patio set for my backyard. Look at this. Patio set. There's like hundreds of lots in this auction, and that's what Briggs Auction is. It's just all this stuff. It's classic stuff. It's antique stuff, but it's also stuff that you can use for your house right now, and also a 1913 Atlas of Delaware County. Coming up at 11th, the Dust Shuttle Auction, which is in conjunction with a mid-century modern furniture collector. BriggsAuction.com/Ricky is where you go. BriggsAuction.com. Briggs is with 2 G's. If you go to BriggsAuction.com/Ricky, you can also register for our twice-a-month Ricky giveaway. Congratulations to, I didn't get the new name. Wait, hold on. I didn't write it down. The winner for this week is Joe Gunnett. Joe Gunnett gets a live Ricky 4 autograph poster and a Ricky Sanchez rookie card. The prize this time is going to be 2 out-of-print Bark in the Park t-shirts and a Ricky Sanchez rookie card. Go to BriggsAuction.com/Ricky. That's BriggsAuction.com/Ricky. They can also handle your estate auction and downsizing auction. Go to email info@BriggsAuction.com. That's info@BriggsAuction.com. Briggs Auction. Shop while your significant other is not looking. Briggs Auction. Okay. Tobias is not going to survive James Harden. Like, I agree with you. I give him credit for launching, but it was definitely, to me, I'm supposed to be doing this. And even by the end of the game, there were a couple that were wide open, and he dribbled into the lane into 3 people. And I could just feel, it's also honeymoon period for Harden, where he's not going to obliterate anyone for doing this yet, not going to, roll his eyes. I think we're going to get the whole season. But I think the thing about Tobias that we never really talk about is with him not shooting enough is he might just not be, he's like not good at it, doing it a lot. I just think his release and his setup and just how he is as a shooter, he wasn't always a 3-point shooter. He sort of built to it by extending his range for a few years. I just don't think he has it, and he's not going to shoot from beyond the arc. And I agree with you. I give him credit, but it just I don't think that's going to work. I would be very, very surprised if he's on the team next year.
Oh yeah, I don't think anyone. I think the reason why I didn't want to trade him at the deadline was because A, chemistry stuff, and B, it's hard to. You have to pay more of a premium to trade him with half a year and 2 more, rather than this year. It's you can convince other teams basically an expiring contract this offseason. It's like 1 year. What's another year? Anything could happen. Almost an expiring contract. I think it's going to be easier to move him and find guys that will be definitely more helpful. But for the rest of the season, I think there will be times when Tobias like saves them on a couple possessions here and there. And if he does shoot like this, which I don't expect will continue, but if he does, if he
and makes them, because
I don't even care if he makes them. Honestly, I don't. I truly don't. It doesn't matter to me. Like,
it does.
He just needs to keep shooting because he's a fine shooter. I agree. He's not like a natural 3-point shooter. He did extend his range out of college because he was more of a mid-range guy for most of his career. But yeah, it's fine. For one night, we appreciate Tobias. Thank you very much. I thought it was a really nice Matisse game. I thought he found ways to impact the game while not getting in the way, while not looking lost. The dunk at halftime was really cool. It's just interesting to see like guys see how the floor opens up differently. Like I played basketball the other night, and there was a big on my team who is bad and doesn't know how to roll, and I'm just like, look at the court and like see that there's no one in front of you between you and the basket, and just like take a step forward and like you're there, baby. Like I'll find you, just like right anytime. And he doesn't see it, and so but it's just different because when guys can create like that, like Harden does, there's more space in different ways. And seeing Matisse recognize that and find his holes is cool. And it was just a nice like proper normal game. I thought it was. I'm glad that they started Matisse over Danny at first. I think Kyle Newbeck made the point like it's easier to go from Matisse to Danny if this doesn't work than the reverse. Because then working Matisse into the starting lineup would be like more difficult later on. If you decide, hey, we're just going to be space the floor and defense will be however good Joel wants the defense to be, with 4 limited defensive players out there, then we can go there. But for now, I'm happy to see. I think you should really give it a fighter's shot to see how Matisse looks with the better passer in there. And if you have to go to Danny, you go to Danny.
Yeah, I think eventually they're going to need Danny's like quick trigger. I eventually they will, because even Maxey is still sort of hesitant as a catch and shoot guy unless he's wide open. But I do think that, like if somebody like Danny is on the court, it actually makes Matisse more tenable on the court. Like the sort of the issue is that the starting lineup has hesitant Maxey, to an extent hesitant Tobias, both on the floor. And then even though I would say Thibault is probably less hesitant than those are, a worse shooter, but less hesitant, it just eventually I think they're going to need Green, but I agree with you wholeheartedly that getting Thibault minutes with Harden I think is important, just so he can learn what he's supposed to do. I think Danny Green will have no trouble figuring out what he's supposed to do with Harden.
Stand there and shoot.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think eventually it'll end up being Green, but I think that I thought it was a positive for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just cool to see them play faster. It's cool to see them like grab and go. And they both Matisse and Maxey they combined for 7 steals. That was cool. Just like getting out in the open court, like easy buckets, like left and right. You said it made it look easy, and like everybody felt that. Like, and it always feels easier when shots go in, but it was just very cool. And I think Harden doesn't get a ton of credit as a rebounder, but like he's a fine defensive rebounder. Like he ends possessions. He has a knack for the ball like that. And without Ben, they were really missing a guy that could do that and then grab and go and start easy offense. And you didn't. Minnesota's a good rebounding team, and they didn't. Like that was not a weakness last night. And so it'd be nice to see it going forward that they can keep that up. It was great. It was a great game. What a true treat seeing Harden do his thing. And he deferred at first for a while. I think like the whole first quarter, basically, he was just like passing. But like you can see the impact on him out there. Like people are cognizant of him. People are moving the ball faster. Things just open up, and it's just, Embiid's been incredible this year. It's been wild to see him drag this team to like a top 4 seed. And obviously Maxey had a lot to do with that. But we're in a whole different arena right now because of how much Harden impacts the game just by being there, by teammates knowing that they have him. There's just like which makes sense. They didn't have Ben Simmons all season long. It was just a big hole in the roster. Now they have somebody else that fills that, and he's better, and it rules. It's good.
He's better at everything. I mean, he's better at dribbling, passing, scoring. He's not better at defense. That's the only thing he's not better at. That Harden is a incredibly rare, hard to put in perspective how rare somebody who is both as good at scoring as he is and as good at creating as he is. He has, I think it was the 3rd most 3-shot per game in the history of the NBA. Of the top 50 players who have the most 3-shot per game, Harden is averaging the most assists out of all of them. I think he's just under 7 for his career. Like, there's nobody like that, really, in the history of the league. There have been great, creating point guards who are also good scorers, and great scorers who are also good creators. But this is, and we'll talk about Beal later when we talk about the Embiid thing. But when we're comparing him to somebody like Beal, that's the difference with Harden, is that he is elite at both of them. He's one of the greatest scorers of all time, and he's one of the greatest passers of all time in one player.
Yeah.
He is not without his flaws, and he is getting older, and he has had hamstring, all the things. Those all exist, but there is not really a historical comp for the effect that he has on a game on offense. There just isn't.
And it was cool to see him have, the book on Harden is that he doesn't move off the ball. That he gets the ball back and stands there, which, not to keep bringing it back to myself, but I also have that tendency. Cutting is not like a natural thing for me. I love when other people cut because then I can like find them. But I like quarterbacking the offense. And I think Harden's a similar way. But he had a really nice relocation 3 last night as, I forget who it was. It might have been Tobias or Maxey. Driving down the left side, Harden relocates to the corner, safety valve, and that's an open catch and shoot 3. And that's like nice to see. And I think we are going to get like honeymoon Harden for sure. Mm-hmm. Because he wants to be here. He's got his guy. Like Daryl said last night, he's wanted to play with Embiid for a very long time. Always just like right on the edge of tampering, right? Just dancing on that line. Just have like tap dancing on the line. But it's, if we can get this honeymoon out of him, I think there's a lot of things that went wrong in Brooklyn, probably. Kyrie's strangeness being one of them for him, Durant being out, all that stuff. But I think also like he was going there to be like, okay, I've been like the number 1 guy in Houston. I've done it. I've done it a lot. I racked up a ton of stats. Now I just want to win and like be serious about winning and have other guys take control sometimes. We talked about it a couple pods ago where it's like, is that really what he thinks? Or is that like just reaching for a justification for just being like, these guys are weird, I'm out. And I don't know the answer to that, obviously, but like he took 12 shots last night. Like he was moving the ball around. He played 35 minutes, took 12 shots. Like I think he's totally fine to let, like he's clearly taking Maxey under his wing. Maxey attacking closeouts, attacking like defensive rotations. He's so fucking fast with the ball. It's unbelievable how quickly he gets to the rim, gets by guys. Letting Embiid do his thing. Embiid he was rolling a little bit. There was one lob that Harden threw that Embiid was just like, nope, not doing that. I'm coming down with it. But like you could see, yes, he wants the ball in his hands, but like it doesn't seem to be I don't anticipate, at least this season, while he's getting what he wants, I don't anticipate it's going to be like any demonstrative, like I'm just going to stand here like kind of pouting because I don't have the ball. I think it's going to be like he's best behavior, trying to win basketball games on the team he wants. Like I think we're in really good shape for the next
Yeah.
3.5 into June months.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Apparently he would pout when Durant when the offense ran through Durant in Brooklyn, which is pretty funny because Kevin Durant is like, you know, I could understand maybe somebody else, but Kevin Durant doesn't seem like that big a problem. I think Maxey it will be interesting to watch his evolution with Harden because given the rest of the lineup, he is not a perfect backcourt mate. You know, he is not the quickest or most determined catch and shoot player, especially, you know, with somebody on him. I think he has a nice balance to Harden in that he works so quickly and he's so willing to push and all those things. And if the rest, like if it was somebody different than Harris, if it was, we bring up Crowder a lot, but if it was a quick trigger 4, if it was Rashard Lewis, if it was a quick trigger,
I would love for it to be Rashard Lewis.
It would be great, right?
I love Rashard Lewis.
If it was a quick trigger 4 and Danny Green instead of what's his face? Danny Green instead of Thibault in the starting lineup, I think Maxey would make a lot more sense. It will be obviously I'm excited for this year. It'll be interesting to see the lineup or the roster creation beyond this year.
Yeah.
You know, but I like watching Maxey with him, but you could tell that it's not exactly the normal fit of what Harden has in a backcourt mate.
So I don't necessarily agree. Like Harden's best year was with Chris Paul, right? And Chris Paul's not a natural catch and shoot guy.
Well, but he's a way better catch and shoot player than Maxey is.
Sure, but he's also slower. He also, at this point in his career, he also likes to survey the defense, and which does some like Harden standing there guy. I think
and also fair to say Harden hated playing with Chris Paul. Also
towards the end, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think as long, like the difference between Maxey and Tobias, both like slightly unwilling shooters. Although I definitely think Maxey's a better shooter and has improved like leaps and bounds in ways that just are you just can't take for granted how much better he's gotten from when they drafted him. At least Maxey does something fast. I think as long as you're not like surveying the defense and dribbling slowly into a post up and like hesitating and then like dribbling into the lane and then turning around and being like, what do I do with it? Like, as long as you're doing that with Harden, not everybody that Harden is ever going to play with is just going to be Daniel House, right? Catch and shoot, that's it. Because that's how we got into the problem last time of like it's Harden and then a bunch of guys that can't do anything else. So it's like he has to do literally everything. And when it slows down, when Harden's like getting doubled, it's not like Jayshawn Tate and Eric Gordon trying to do something like kind of slowly, although Eric Gordon's a fine player, but it's Maxey like attacking the defense, and while they're sliding over, he's just too fast to get there. He can get to the rim so easily. There were so many times where he just like was a beeline to the rim because of like they had to help on Harden or Embiid. So I do think it's going to work. I think absolutely does he need to keep improving as a catch and shoot guy 100%. It's nice that right now they're going to Doc's going to stagger those guys. I do think it was his rotations were smart last night and hopefully going forward because you want Maxey like having the ball. Sometimes he's not just a stand there guy. He gets to do that when Harden's off the court. I just feel really good about like having another guy on the court that can do that, because if it was just Harden, Embiid, and like 3 Justin Holidays, I do think against good teams there will be things that get closed off. Because Harden, especially at this point in his career, there were times when he looked good last night. Hopefully he keeps playing into shape. I'm sure there was some rust after being away from the game for 3 weeks or whatever. But he's not like at his peak quickness, obviously. He is quick. I think people like talk about him as if he's incredibly slow at this point, and that's not the case. He is quick. He can get by guys, and he uses the threat of the shot and the handle to push forward and to beat guys off the dribble. But he's not Maxey speed-wise. So it's nice to have another guy out there that can do that. And I think against defense, like you can stop a team can stop Harden. A team has and can stop Embiid. It's really hard to stop both of them. But it's definitely hard to stop both of them when you have a guy like Maxey out there who can get to the rim and just make you pay for your mistakes because he's so fast and strong with the ball around the rim. And I think they're just going to be a really, really good offense for the rest of the year. It's going to be, they both, I mean, it was cool that the first game they shot, they all scored like high 20s, early 30s points, 27, 28, 34. Like that just, on like incredible efficiency. God, it was great. I was like vicious last night, just like dancing around my fucking like loser shit, just like stomping around, like pulling my shirt up, like really like embarrassing stuff. This is why we don't do live streams during a game, because I'll
both ways. You'd be miserable both ways. Miserable.
Yes, miserable both directions. It's not good. There's no game scenario where it would be like it would end well for me. So I need to be alone. I think John watched the game with me one time. Weber watched the game with me one time. And I'm just like, I don't think it's for anybody. I think I'm an alone person. Alyssa can handle it at this point. Although sometimes I'm not in a great place, and she's like, just get away from me. But I'm mostly an alone person, so I can just celebrate by myself and do I don't know. I was doing a robot at some point. Like, what's going on?
Speaking of Alyssa, your fiance, the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by LL Pavorsky Jewelers. LL Pavorsky Jewelers is the first sponsor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. 5-6 years ago? How many years ago was the Reddick signing? Was it 5 years ago? Because I feel like they were around the same time.
He was on the team for 2 years, and then he's been off the team for 2 years.
Okay. So I think LL has been 6 years, because LL was 2 years before that. Anyway, Mike got his engagement ring for Alyssa from LL Pavorsky Jewelers. Over 250 Rights to Ricky Sanchez customers, listeners for LL have purchased engagement rings from LL. Why do people keep going to LL? Well, aside from us talking about him, all the reviews are great because he's a great dude. He's been in that spot for 30 plus years. You go to buy an engagement ring, you go to these other jewelry stores, they're fucking on you as soon as you walk in. Pressure. No pressure from LL. None. Zero. No pressure. And he is going to treat you great no matter what you're spending in there. You're spending $100,000 for an engagement ring, treats you great, like obviously. Spending $1,000 for an engagement ring, he's going to treat you great. He treats all of our listeners awesome. That's why he's been in business for so long. That's why we're so proud to partner with him. I just sent him a shipment of Rights to Ricky Sanchez t-shirts to give away to his Ricky customers again. He had been bothering me for months. It's like, you're spending all that money on a ring, just a free fucking t-shirt. Is that the big deal? But according to LL, it is. If you're going to buy an engagement ring from LL, make an appointment. 215-627-2252. Email him, lee@llpavorsky.com. You are legally not permitted to go anywhere else than LL Pavorsky Jewelers. The store is at 707 Walnut, or you can tweet at them at LL Pavorsky. Supports our charities, coded by kids, and the Providence Animal Center. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
We got him, and he's got you.
There's a silent tournament, it seems. Shake and
Quiet tournament.
Quiet tournament. Shake and Furk. Your prediction, who wins?
Well, let's think. So I think Danny's probably going to be in unless he just breaks down physically and can't
For sure.
move out there.
100%.
I think Niang's definitely in for volume shooting and shit talking. I think there's a world where one of Shake or Korkmaz falls out of the rotation. Isaiah Joe looked good in limited minutes last night. He is also tailor-made to play alongside James Harden if the coaching staff trusts him, which to this point they haven't, and he hasn't really shot as well from a three as we expect for him to force his way into the rotation. It's interesting. Korkmaz is certainly the quicker trigger, but Harden and Maxey, they're going to spend 12 minutes each, maybe more, depending on the game, off the court. So it's nice to have like a secondary creator in some of that time, which Shake is. There was one time when Shake tried to do like a quick catch and shoot three, and like he airballed it because they think he's not naturally that fast. He needs a little time to step into it and everything. So I'm not sure. I definitely don't mind keeping the rotation long for now and letting to see how guys like gel together. I think
Who's gonna win?
I don't know. We're talking about it. This isn't radio. I'm giving the context. That's not a hot take. The context is I hope they both play well. I hope they like work through their stuff.
It doesn't have to, obviously, we hope they both play well. I hope everyone hits all their shots.
But I think there's 24 games left, and you got to like let people work through how to play with Harden and figure out like what the best way to do it is. And
that's
sometimes
what
it's
they're
going to take some
to
time.
do. My question to you is, who do you think is going to perform better? And if it is one of the two, who will end up playing? It doesn't make you a hot take artist. We're 60 minutes into a fucking hour and a half long podcast on Saturday morning about the Sixers. Like, you saying that you think Shake will perform better does not make you Skip Bayless.
No, I just don't know the answer. It's
so
like
hard.
Korkmaz
Of
hasn't
course
shot
you
well
don't
this season, and he's got the quicker trigger, and he's a better shooter, and he shoots it high. Milton, it would be nice to have some of his handle for some of the game when Maxey or Harden's off the court. So it'll come down to, in the playoffs especially, it'll come down to who's hitting the shots. But I can see the value of both. I don't know the answer. Who do you think?
I'm blown away by you. I think God forbid you give an opinion that can be correct or incorrect. I don't know, Mike. Well, I guess we'll see how it plays out. That's actually how I'm going to approach the rest of the season. Every single game, I don't know what's going to happen. I simply will watch to see what the results of the performances are. I'm eager to see, what are we going to talk about next that we don't know is going to happen.
Come on, man.
No,
like, I give plenty of opinions. I'm saying there's positives in both sides. There's negatives in both sides.
Of course there are. Like, why is this so? This isn't radio. It's so fucking stupid. I just I don't know why it's so why the idea of giving an opinion has to be like a negative. Just fuck it. What do you want to talk about next? Talk about Isaiah Joe and how he might be good or bad. We don't know.
Well, I do want to talk about the center rotation. I do think Millsap didn't look great last night. I think he's fine. I think the threat of the three is nice. But it would be nice to have, whether it's Cauley Stein or Charles Bassey had a really nice game in the G League, where he'd be cool as a roller. Like, it'd be just nice to have Harden throwing lobs. And I don't think B-Ball Paul's that guy right now. I would love to work him into that because his defense is special, as we talked about. But I would like Doc to give it a couple chances with whether it's Cauley Stein in the 10-day or Charles Bassey like working through his mistakes. Because Paul Millsap's nice, but I do think having Harden have a roll man, because Embiid's not going to be catching lobs, would be just a good change of pace for the second unit.
Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens.
We certainly will.
Yeah. Well, they all have their pluses and minuses, Millsap has been good previously, and we don't know if he still is. Willie Cauley-Stein has struggled to reach his potential. Charles Bassey played earlier this year, and now hasn't played for a while. And B-Ball Paul, we all have seen how he's good and bad sometimes.
Certainly true.
Yeah. What next?
Whatever you want, man.
No. This isn't radio. I mean, we're just sort of like free flowing. So what next?
I can keep going. I can keep going about the game.
Why not?
All right. Well, then I shall. I think I'm going to talk about it all. It was nice to see Embiid just not have to do everything. It just felt like very cool to see him like he can do everything. He has. There will be times when he does it again, when it looks like he's putting the whole team on his back. But it was cool it was just sweet to see him like get some easy looks. I've been calling for that for like 3 years, where it's like it'd be nice to get him some easy dunkets around the rim. And there was one where Harden found him on the roll, and it was like D'Angelo Russell back, and it was just like that's an easy dunk. It's an easy layup and a foul, and they're just in a really good position to be very good for a long time. And it's Minnesota. They're a good team. They play. I like Minnesota very much. I think they're a nice team. I think they could, depending on matchup, like sneak into like a competitive first round series if they manage to get out of the play-in, which they're close to. But I'm trying not to overreact, but I am also overreacting. I think the Sixers have a really good chance to be the best team in the East.
Sixers Reddit pointed out, CJ, are you able to put that photo up of Willie Cauley-Stein's tattoo? He's got a 76 tattoo behind his ear. Now, he is either huge on America, and the birth year of our nation, or he was always meant to be here. He does have a lot of tattoos. Eventually, I guess you could sort of run out of ideas. I don't know. It's in a triangle, which makes me think that it's a Illuminati thing or something. But he certainly wasn't born in 76. Any significance of this, do you think?
I have no idea. I didn't see this before.
Yeah. I saw it on Sixers Reddit. Now, he also has a tattoo on his face that looks like it says PUS with a heart. He's got a lot of tattoos. Obviously, as a tattoo guy, I have no problem with that. But I do think having a 76 tattoo is something. He is much thinner than I had imagined him. He didn't get in until, 3 minutes left in the game. He is a gangly guy, man. He's very big and he's very long, but he's incredibly thin. Really, really thin.
Yeah, it's like the strong thinness. Like there's something about, he's not Durant, but obviously in any way. But there's like some guys that are thin, but like look strong while being thin, like powerful. Like I don't feel that way with Nerlens, but there's like a strength, length strength. Is that something? But I could maybe just because he's a lob threat, that it just seems like he's more physical than guys that are that skinny. He doesn't seem to get like pushed around much for his height. Breaking news: Markelle Fultz announces his return to Orlando.
Well, when you started saying the word return, when you said breaking news, I was wondering if it was retirement. Yeah, which would have been.
Oh, retirement. Oh,
yeah,
wow. No, it said this is Orlando Magic PR. Markelle Fultz announces his return on the Orlando Magic Pod Squad. What a terrible name for a podcast. And it should be, I guess, in a couple days. That's the thing with the Sixers, man, is that all our old friends and villains and long lost friends and people they all come back. They don't stay out of the news for too long. But
Tyson Chandler was skinny strong.
Yes, that's
similar, right?
That's right.
That's what we're thinking about. Right. Well, it was a great game, and they play again tomorrow against the Knicks, and then Wednesday against the Knicks, right? Yeah, home and home with the Knicks.
There's really no game from Sunday to Wednesday?
Yeah, I think that's it.
I wonder if the Doc will have a practice.
I don't know. I don't want to get too optimistic about it. So there was a rumor that came out, or a report that came out this week about something that Daryl talked about potentially on the pod. We'll talk about it in a second, right after we talk about our final sponsor of the pod, Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. My dog sleeps on a Big Barker. Mike's family dog sleeps on a Big Barker. If you care about your dog, if you love your dog, if you care about your dog's health, if you care about your dog's happiness, you will get your dog a Big Barker. BigBarker.com/Ricky. Hundreds and hundreds of Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners, way ahead of LL, if I'm to be honest, have purchased Big Barker dog beds for their pup and then send us a picture so we can put them up in the Process Pup gallery. The only way you can do this is by going to BigBarker.com/Ricky and getting the Process Pup patch, sending us a photo of your dog on the bed. Quite simply, until Big Barker, there were no dog beds that were made as a real bed that considered the dog's health, the dog's joints, what it's like for dogs as they age. They're just like us. Their joints get creaky. And dog beds were basically glorified pillows. And then Big Barker came along. And they're like, what the fuck? We need to make a real bed. And that's what they did. It was proven by Penn Vet. Penn Vet did a study, showed an improvement in joint function, a reduction in pain severity, improvement in quality of life, reduction in joint stiffness. This all happens to your dog when they're young and happens more as they get older. And don't be scared away by the name Big Barker. They have beds for dogs of any size, even the Barker Jr. for your bag. What do they call the dogs that are just like in bags? They call them like pocketbook dogs. Carry around. What do they call them? Isn't there like a name for like tiny dogs like that?
I don't
know. Anyway, somebody's saying it at home. Send us an email. BigBarker.com/Ricky. There's a 10-year warranty. The foam doesn't flatten or they replace it for free. 1 year at-home trial. If you don't like it, if your dog doesn't like it, They will pay for a full refund, even the shipping. Handmade in the USA. Big Barker dog beds.
Woof woof.
This is the quote from the Bill Simmons podcast via our friend James Herbert from CBS Sports. I've had pretty good intel throughout this whole thing. This is what I was hearing in the moment, that Embiid really wanted Bradley Beal and was pushing really hard for it and was talking to him all the time and was pushing. And part of the reason the trade stuff took so long is there was this Sixers side that wanted Harden, obviously including Daryl because Harden's his guy, but Embiid really wanted Beal because he felt like it was a better fit and he was pushing. Then Beal gets hurt, but Embiid is still pushing. No. Beal, still working on him. And then Beal's like, I'm out. He gets surgery. And that's how we end up with the Harden situation. Now, of course, when Daryl was on our pod, he said they were close, I guess, or to another trade that he thought would have been good. Now, if Daryl thinks the trade would have been good, then you might posit that it would be a star player. We did think about maybe Beal or Haliburton. It's interesting. I don't know if it's anything other than interesting. It doesn't seem like a surgery that Beal had to have. And Beal is similar to Lillard in a way in that he doesn't seem terribly interested in leaving. I do think it's interesting if Embiid preferred Beal. I think he would have been wrong, though, because I think Harden's better. I wouldn't have minded ending up with Beal, of course. Nothing more than interesting to me if it's true, you know?
Yeah, I mean, first I will say I don't trust anything Bill Simmons says. That is... I'm not saying that he's not like connected. I'm not saying that people don't like talk to him. Probably like when you're around the NBA like that, like people talk to you. But he also like has an agenda, like, and he's also like deeply washed up and like way past his time. So like I'm not taking this as gospel in any sense. But let's say it is true. I get it in the sense that like Beal is a way better shooter off the catch, a way more willing shooter off the catch. And if Embiid is thinking, I don't know if it for a while, I'm sure Embiid wasn't even like, it's not like he was like, do I want Harden or Beal? I think he was probably just like, Beal seems like a great fit. Harden's not available, obviously. And then as that came over, I wouldn't expect him to be like, no, definitely Brad Beal is a better player than James Harden. I wouldn't expect that. But I think I could see how you'd be like, hey, I'm doing my thing. He probably really likes Maxey, likes playing with him. It's been clear all season. And he wouldn't want to like, push Maxey out of the rotation. It's an easier like make sense type fit of like, here's Beal, great shooter, catch and shoot guy, shoot off movement. Maxey gets to stay there. I get that. Harden's like a way better player. Even though he's older, he's still a way better player.
Way better, yeah. The years difference. I wonder too, and this is just like there's obviously no sourcing or reporting on this. Just thinking out loud about it, the idea that maybe the offense gets to run more through Embiid if Beal is here, and it's not like Harden has a history of everything being centered around Harden. You know, I don't know. It's certain, and like, look, Harden and Embiid look like they're fast friends, even if he did prefer Beal. But it is, and I agree with you in that Simmons certainly would love to throw a stick of dynamite into the Sixers thing to watch the chaos. Though it is an interesting pairing with what Morey had said on the pod. Then to that end, this is also via James Herbert, because I would not listen to the JJ Redick podcast, but I guess Tyrese Haliburton was on the JJ Redick podcast and said, I went to Topgolf the night before with some friends. I had a good night. I woke up that morning and got the call from my agent, and I think I didn't answer at first. He texted me. He's like, call me ASAP. So I'm like, is somebody getting traded? And then he's like, you're getting traded. And I was like, stop playing. He's like, you're going to get traded. I think you're going to get traded to Philly. And I'm like, really? And then, of course, he got traded to Indiana. Now,
And he called George Niang.
Yes, and Niang didn't know anything.
Teammate at Iowa State,
right?
And Niang didn't know anything. Yeah, I think there's solid arguments that Daryl was deeply considering both guys. I mean, it's been talked about a lot. Beal was like, especially before Washington was good, and then after they had, fell off a cliff a little bit, Beal was talked about as like the most obvious option, aside from Dame, who had already like kind of called it a season about a month or two before. And Haliburton was like the prize, along with Harrison Barnes, of like the Kings package. it all makes sense. It makes sense that Daryl, even though we weren't hearing like a ton of stuff about the trade or what was happening, or like it felt like we were sort of in a holding pattern of like who is possible, who can we get for Ben. It felt like we were just having the same conversation for 6 months. It makes sense that Daryl was like really seriously going down the road of a bunch of places, and then when Harden became available, the fact that they have such a close relationship, it was like, all right, this is what we have to really focus on, and it's incredibly sick that we got him and he got him.
You know, I was thinking about it as we were playing the Timberwolves last night, because I had originally circled this game with Joe from Fans of Philly as the potential flyaway trip, because it really felt like Ben was going to end up in Minneapolis at some point. I wonder, maybe it's because they needed a third team and they just didn't have it to trade. Just wonder where it ended up with them, and if they ever entered into these discussions, right? Like if they ever entered into a three-way with any of these teams. I wonder how close Minnesota ever came to getting Simmons, because they're good and they're exciting and they're young. I think D'Angelo Russell sucks, and I think they're going to have to do something about that. But I wonder if they came close to getting Simmons at any point.
Yeah, I mean, I've said D'Angelo Russell sucks a couple times this year. He's having a pretty nice season, and he's helpful there, and he's obviously a pretty good shooter and can do some nice things, and they've been a good team, and I have been rooting for them this year. I think he would have been less helpful on this team, and a D'Angelo Maxey backcourt could be something, but I think the Harden one is obviously way better. The interesting thing with them is that like Ben is a perfect fit there and always was to be the four, although I do really, really like Jared Vanderbilt, but they just never had much to trade. Like they would have needed the Sixers to fall off a cliff this year. Like if Embiid got hurt, say Embiid got hurt back in December, and it's like he's out for the year, we're screwed. I think there's a real world where they traded Ben for like a truckload of picks this season. Didn't worry about this season. And then Minnesota would have been an option there. They would have gotten like 4 years worth of picks from them, and it would have been a fine trade for them. But they just never had that much to trade because D'Angelo was like relevant, especially if they got Ben. Then D'Angelo would be really relevant as a catch and shoot guy. Just like Jaden McDaniels, people were hyping up as like the crown jewel, and he's just not that good. He could get better and he'll be fine, but he's not like the centerpiece of anything. And there's a couple other like nice players in that team, but they're not trading Anthony Edwards. Cat doesn't fit, obviously.
Yeah.
So I imagine they had a lot of conversations, but it would have required the Sixers to be worse and really explore the picks option.
Or third team. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The hard to stomach YouTube comment of the week comes from Brian Kluger, who says, "I wish the Hoagie Hour podcast was real." A lot of reaction to Tony's appearance on the pod last week. The revelation that he had accidentally wound up in Washington, D.C. on January 5th, and then become friends with Kyrie Irving and is making a movie with Kyrie Irving. I would like to tell Brian that the Hoagie Hour podcast is real. It is just not released. There are 4 episodes of it that I think will just float around the dark web until one of Mutlu or Amos unfortunately passes away. But the Hoagie Hour podcast does actually exist. This is the mailbag. Write to RickySanchez@gmail.com. Write to RickySanchez@gmail.com. Send us one basketball, one non-basketball. This comes from Bill. Embiid and Harden are clearly best friends, and I haven't been this happy since Eric Snow days. So I'm wondering if all of this is happening, and I'm right to be terrified of what will happen next. Also, is it too early to tell everyone who hated this trade, Sixers fans included, to fuck off?
Yeah, I mean, it was always very bizarre. Like,
it was a strange thing.
I think that I hesitate to say like there's like any sort of national conspiracy against Philadelphia.
Oh, there it is.
I hesitate to say
Santa.
that. I hesitate to say it, but it is so strange that the media was ripping Ben Simmons for so long, for all this time, and ripping the Sixers and how embarrassing it is, and like they got to trade him, get Embiid help. Like, what is Daryl Morey doing? This is an embarrassment. And I think a lot of time when it's like Twitter's saying one thing and then now Twitter's saying another thing, it's like, well, those are different people. There's different people saying different things.
Right.
But I think that the national media spoke with national sports media spoke with a relatively full voice, saying like, this is embarrassing. The Sixers got to trade this guy. he sucks. He's embarrassed. Look at this Hawks thing. Like, what a joke of everything. And then the trade happens, and they're like, I don't know if Harden was the right guy to get. Like, I don't know if he was the right fit. And Simmons looks perfect in Brooklyn. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I agree with like, I think Simmons is a nice fit for Brooklyn. Obviously, with Kevin Durant, who's one of the best players alive and ever. And if Kyrie can play with the vaccine mandate being lifted, whatever, then it's going to be a nice fit for sure. But like, we got James Harden.
Right.
It's James Harden. Like, what are we talking about? We got a guy who wasn't playing. Everyone was saying, oh, they're not going to get anything for him. Trade him for whatever. Trade him for anything at all. Trade him for Harrison Barnes. Whatever the fuck, anything. Buddy Hield. Like, now I'm just naming kings. It's just like, it's James Harden. I just don't, and I think some of it is just like, the national media needs to come up with a new spin on it, and the spin could be like, actually, Brooklyn's great, and this is perfect for them. It worked out even better for them. But it's like, we had someone who wasn't playing, who had very clear weaknesses, and now we replaced him with one of the best players of all time. One of the best offensive players of all time, let's say. And he's not Chris Webber.
Well, he was in
when the Sixers got him. Like,
he was in the 75 like greatest players thing at the All-Star game. So
absolutely.
You can say one of the greatest players of all time. He is officially named by the league.
Absolutely. Okay. And obviously would go up higher on that list if you just talk about offense, because he can do everything on offense. As we talked about before, one of the best shooters, one of the best creators. It's just like, it's James Harden. And I think that some of it is just like finding a new take, finding a new way to talk about this. And I do think that Ben's going to be a nice fit in Brooklyn if he plays, when he plays, whatever. But like, we got James Harden for a guy that wasn't playing. Like,
and still
that
isn't
rules.
playing, by the way. And
yes.
still isn't playing. Harden is playing. Goran Dragic is going to play in their next game. And Ben Simmons is still like doing individual workouts at Nets practice. And that is not, you can't ignore that. You cannot ignore that the guy has not been playing and is not playing and has no date for when he's going to play. Yeah. That has to go into the calculus of the trade.
Stephen A. Smith, who is very fun, but also like, does what he does, like said Daryl Morey got hosed in this trade. And it's like, we got James Harden for a guy that is two guys that are occasionally unplayable in the playoffs. And I guess you can add Ben as a guy who in the Hawks series was unplayable for a lot of that series. And who wasn't playing this year, and it still isn't. And it's just like, how it's James Harden. You can have issues with him and how he like forces his way out of a couple teams, and how he doesn't really move without the ball, and how he's not a good defensive player, especially on the perimeter, although he is a really good post defender. So if they try to do that, he's fine on switches. But like, it's still like they had no chance of contending before the trade. None. Even how good Embiid was, they had no chance of winning. Maybe they could have won a round in the right matchup, but like, they weren't winning two. And now they have James Harden, and they have a chance to win the championship. And it's just like, this is good. Is it going to end perfectly in a couple years? Maybe, whenever, who knows? But like, you give yourself a chance when you have two of the top 10 players in the league, and now we have that, and that is excellent. It's James Harden, and I think people are just like finding a new thing to talk about. But it's like, they're wrong. They were wrong.
At the very worst, it was good for both teams. And I did see some people say that. At the very worst, it was, neither of them wanted to be there. So having something is better than nothing. And at least the Nets salvaged something. I'm aware of all of the potential negatives with James Harden, but like the people who didn't like the trade, it's like, there's no better trade. I promise you.
Yeah.
Non-basketball questions. The guy who made wiping mainstream RTRS topic, there's one area of bathroom etiquette we have not yet discussed. TPT, or toilet paper technique. I personally neatly fold the squares and will even fold and double wipe if it's clean enough. But my wife, the original stander, bunches it up. While another gal I know literally wraps her hand like a mummy in what seems like a horrific waste of paper. Do you have an opinion on the correct way, the correct toilet TPT?
I'm somewhere in between. I think a square, I need a little bit more fullness to it. And if you flatten it too much, then it just doesn't feel like it's getting this much. But like, a clump also isn't quite right. So I'm somewhere in between. I like almost like those little like place settings, like a fancy dinner, like a napkin where they fold it up in like a nice way and it looks like It's sort of like in a little design kind of thing. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to like have like a little bit of heft, like some structure to it, but like also a little bit of a looseness so it's not quite too tight. I think that finding that middle ground is what I strive for with my toilet paper.
Growing up, I was a buncher. The folded over after one wipe is a bold, like, what rainforest are you trying to save, bro? Like, you're being a little dangerous. I agree. I think I try to do like a mix between the square and the clump up. It ends up in like a little sort of like make like a little tube and then pull it off. But the mummy thing sounds fucking terrifying. This is from PJ. I love how you banned Danny's friend for not saying the name and then proceeded to only refer to him as the other guy. A+ trolling, even if it was an accident. The other guy from the Green Room podcast is banned. Sixers question: which Sixer is most likely to become Harden's strip club buddy?
Oh, I don't know. I think I worry that like I know he's like it's his thing is being a strip club guy, but like I worry that it's like a little too much. The joking about it is like a little too much. I don't know. So I feel uncomfortable about it.
He's definitely a strip club guy. Trying to think who. I think it's probably just Yang, who seems like he's like doesn't like maybe Yang. He doesn't seem like he's
whoever
married.
Harden's Justin Anderson is.
You're right.
Remains to be seen.
Right. And then non-basketball, did Spike get engaged on Valentine's Day? I've listened to the podcast since the early days, perhaps too much, and I feel like I've heard pro-Valentine's Day takes from Spike multiple times throughout the years, even encouraging people to propose during some LL ads. No judgment. A lot of people dislike the holiday. Curious where Spike's affinity comes from. I did not get engaged on Valentine's Day. I don't like when people say it's only a commercial holiday. All holidays are. Even if it's only a commercial holiday, having one to be extra nice to your significant other is not a bad holiday. We should have more holidays like that, less about like, I don't know, everything else, I guess. From do you normally pronounce Xavier or Xavier?
Well, the
name.
College is Xavier.
Xavier. Yeah, the name though. Would you default to Xavier? I think I would default to Xavier.
I would probably go with Xavier because I'm usually talking about the Xavier basketball team.
Hope you're doing well. Basketball question. How would you rank these 5 teams in terms of who you would want to play in the first round? 1 being who you want to play most, 5 being last. Heat, Bulls, Nets, Celtics, Bucks.
So our friend Jason Lipschutz had a tweet after the game immediately charting a path from the Sixers to the finals, which is absolutely disgusting 1 game in, but I did deeply respect it.
Jason is a huge Willie Cauley-Stein guy immediately, by the way. I'm worried for Jason in 9 days, but yeah.
So the East is good, man. There's just a lot of really good teams, and the Celtics especially have turned it around a lot and look imposing. The Bulls are really good. DeMar is hard to imagine. Like none of those options are good. Like none of those are fun. The Sixers have beaten the Bulls 3 times this year, so I think you feel some level of comfort that they can handle it. But it's also tough because between DeRozan and Levine, like Matisse can only cover one of those guys, and one of the other ones is going to go off probably. So I maybe you say the Bulls, even though I think they're good, because the Sixers have beaten them a lot. Boston's a tough matchup. Who are the other ones? Bucks.
Boston, Miami, the Bucks. Like, look, I want no part of the Bucks. I want
maybe. I don't know.
No.
I kind of sense vulnerability in the Bucks, and I kind of like I picked them to win the championship at the beginning of last year, but I think we do this too much. I say this all the time. Once someone has done something, then we're like, oh, obviously, like all the doubt of before completely goes away. And there's still like some flaws in that Milwaukee team, especially if they don't have Brook Lopez protecting the rim. Their just defense is not as good as it was. Serge Ibaka is toast. I think I want to face the Heat the least.
wow.
And I might say Boston's just a tough matchup for us. I haven't seen him with Harden, so we'll see. So I might say Bulls Heat, Bulls Bucks. There's one more I'm missing.
Bulls, Bucks, Celtics, Nets.
Nets. Oh yeah, the Nets. I want to face the Nets. Absolutely.
Yeah.
For more for the whole situation. That would just be a real emotional situation. So let me say I'd rather the Nets won. I want to face them the most, and then probably the Bulls, even though they're good, just because the Sixers have beaten them several times. Then probably the Bucks. Then probably the Celtics. Then probably the Heat.
So to your point about people thinking like being maybe too high on the Bucks, the Sixers are actually shorter odds at DraftKings to win the championship than the Bucks. Sixers are plus 700, Bucks are plus 750. I actually think people are generally sleeping on the Bucks. I just think they're coasting during the regular season. I think they're going to be fine. I think I want the Nets.
The Bucks don't have just a woman like trading DiVincenzo and then Pat Connaughton getting hurt. Like there's some lightness on the wing there. They're playing like Lindell Wigington.
Will Connaughton be back?
I think I don't think it's a season ender, but
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Team I least would want to play would be a tie between probably the Bucks. The Bucks the least. The Heat the second least. The Celtics the third least. I don't care about the Bulls and the Nets. Bring it. Let's go. The Nets, I'm done with the Nets being a challenge until they're actually a challenge. You can't just be for 2 years. They've been theoretically the best team in the league. I just watched them the other night. They got obliterated by Boston. They never had a chance, and they don't have any. Like none of their good players are playing. So if any of their good players decide to play regularly, then I will be afraid of the Nets, but not until that point. Non-basketball question. I'm moving to Philly around late April, early May, more specifically Melrose in South Philly. My question is, what is the absolute first thing I should do once I move in? Non-sporting event. I'm really bad at these questions. Do you have a first thing?
No, I'm not there.
Go take a picture in front of LL Pavorsky Jewelers, I think. And then
I'll just add the other one. The Cavs are also good. I know they're easy to sleep on them because they came out of nowhere. Garland is incredible. Evan Mobley rules. Like Jared Allen is physical. When Kevin Love's hitting shots, Larry Markkinen gets back. And I think Karis LeVert definitely going to help them shore up the wing rotation a little bit. They're a little bit injured right now, but they're a good team, and I could see them winning around. Not against the Sixers, but in the right matchup, I could see them winning around. And I feel the same way about Toronto. They're good. They're long and they're different, and they switch and they talk, and they're a terror on defense, and Fred VanVleet hits all the shots. They're just and they have a 6-man rotation, which is wild.
I think we definitely could lose to the Raptors. No joke. The Raptors are terrifying.
It's just a really good year for the East, and I feel like people are slow to realize that because the West has been better for so long. The East, aside from Phoenix and although without Chris Paul for at least a little while, they're going to struggle. Golden State has struggled without Draymond. Memphis is good, but obviously young, and Ja keeps coming in and out with injuries. But the East is just way better than the West right now by a lot. I could see one of those West teams winning, probably Phoenix, but there's a lot of really good teams in the East, and there's just very few in the West.
Final email. Dear Spike and Mike, I think I speak for many when I say that losing the Color Star Sixers partnership and the accompanying Woodward and Bernstein-style expose by producer CJ and Mike's valiant and ultimately failing attempts to contain his exasperation was a huge blow, purely from a content perspective. But then there was we were unexpectedly given a new gift, Mike and Daryl Morey's conversation over NFTs. I have absolutely no idea what NFTs or blockchain or crypto are, but as a listener, I need to have Mike's ongoing thoughts on them in my life. With that in mind, may I propose that Rights Ricky Sanchez begin awarding a Bored Ape of the Game award of the game. At first, I thought it could be the Sixer who did something that was the most confusing to honor Daryl's terrible description of NFTs, but that seems too close to the Danny. So what if the Bored Ape award is one who is the player who clearly simply did not want to be there, both in honor of the Bored Ape itself and Mike's feelings toward NFTs in general? What do you think?
I don't think it's a bad idea. Yeah. I just don't want to talk about it more. That's how I feel.
Yep.
Did you see the
what?
De'Aaron Fox thing with NFTs?
Yeah, producer CJ sent it to me. So apparently, or confirmedly, De'Aaron Fox had a whole NFT thing, sold everything, and then just deleted everything and kept the money.
That's right.
CJ,
Just
is
made
that
1.5 mil and was like, peace.
Is CJ? Could you come on for a second because you know about NFTs better
Good
than
for
me.
him, man. Good
Yeah.
for De'Aaron Fox.
Do those NFTs still exist?
I believe like they still have like the art for it. Like I'm sure they like.
And they love the art. The art you can't beat it. It's worth a couple $100,000 just for the art alone.
However, like the important thing is that they had it on the blockchain, so they had like the representation of owning that piece of whatever, and a lot of them were valued like up to like I don't know like $1,500 each. And in response, De'Aaron Fox was like, "Oh, I'll give you a signed jersey for this,"
Oh
Perfect.
wow!
and that was like his. Okay, I'm good.
Honestly, great. Like you people got, and he honestly, we need more NBA players who are actively scamming their fans, and I think that's great. I think that's awesome. If these dumbasses want to fucking pay a bunch of money and then he can just be like, oh great, I made $1.5 million. I can stop doing all of this bullshit. Great, it's gone.
Well,
Thank you.
I glanced at.
Here's my signature.
To be fair, I didn't read all of it, but I glanced at his explanation, and it was something to the effect of, "I took all this on. I didn't know it would be so much work." Is like. It wasn't him doing the blockchain stuff, right? I mean, it couldn't have been. He wasn't just with Spencer Dinwiddie in a basement somewhere making the NFTs, right?
Yeah, he's
What
doing the
work
algorithm.
could it be?
He's
Yeah.
coding. He's deep. He's got the headset on. He's in Facebook. He's fucking locked in. Just great. Tremendous. Scam. We need more public scams from public figures in the NBA. Absolutely. I hope that like it'd be like saying, hey, I'm signing autographs here, and then instead of signing autographs, I'm taking $1.5 million from you. Hey, I'm gonna be at this mall signing autographs for fans, and if you show up, I'm taking $1.5 million from you. Great, awesome.
What are the chances? Probably low that Morey owns a De'Aaron Fox NFT.
I hope he does. I hope Daryl's pissed, and Daryl trades for him this summer just so he can berate him for ripping him off.
We'll be back on Wednesday night after the Knicks game. I assume. Actually, we haven't even done our March schedule yet, but I assume we'll be Wednesday night after the Knicks game. Well, enjoy the feeling now. As we've known before, these feelings of joy can be brief. So if you don't get all of it now, you may never get it. So
Plan the parade route. We are going.
The
Let's
Meta
do it.
Parade that we get to speak at. We'll talk to you later this week. Are you done with TTP?
Yeah, you know, lick face.